Hey everybody, welcome to the Combo Wombo podcast. I am Mr. Gimpy, and as always, I am joined by the one, the only Chipped Monk. What's up, bro?
Hey, what's going on, bro?
Had to put a little sauce on your intro, bro.
You put a little bit of sauce. So you set the marinara sauce to extra spicy, like with some gumbo, and it was a bit too much for the energy I was bringing you this morning. You're like, let's go, and I'm like, hey man, what's going on?
I showed you that song earlier, dude. I was ready. I was ready to go.
You're gonna be amped up, dude. You're like, listen to this feature, Tech Nine, a Midwest favorite. Like,
yep.
Yeah, bro.
Tech Nine and Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Just fucking bringing bars.
He brought like one bar.
He brought Tech Nine helped him write it, and Tech Nine was gonna write the whole verse, and Rock goes, nah.
Yeah, I mean, the guy had to cut promos like every night almost. Like,
yeah,
and like
he literally wrote songs for his. Yeah. It was
like people forget that they do different things like in each like town that they go to. Like they're basically performers that perform like 365, like I think it's some crazy schedule like that. It's like 296 days out of the year they're like on the road, like at a different place, a different stadium, like putting on a show. And like a lot of those guys, like they're making stuff up like every night. Like I watched the show, and it was like when Steve Austin got his head hit on the announcer table and like, you know, his blood's gushing out everywhere. That announcer, he's like showing, like he's like, yeah, and here's my notes from that night, and he had like one page of just like one-liners about things he wanted to talk about, like for different wrestlers, dude. And like that was like a page, like he was doing that like every night, everywhere he went. He was like, oh, how can I think of speaking things like what a maneuver? So like the Rock cut a promo, bro.
That was
like
Vince McMahon at the end. He would have no idea what the move was called, and he'd like throw like a hurricane rod out. And you're like, what a maneuver! It's just like, okay, Vince, thanks.
It's a Frankensteiner.
You just own the goddamn company, but you have no idea what any move is, except for Jake the Snake's DDT. That's the one he would always go, and a devastating DDT.
Yeah, man.
Shout out Vince McMahon, dude. That shit. People forget he was an announcer. He's actually pretty good as an announcer, honestly. Like,
yeah, I mean, he grew up in the business, dude.
Yeah,
like, I mean, those guys, again, like they're just doing like improv every night. So I'm like, are you surprised that Dwayne the Rock can drop a bar? I'm like, no, like that makes perfect sense. Like,
right?
Like, go watch like his '90s promos where he's like just like half the stuff is so like non PC, but it's so funny. Like you're just like, yeah, all right. Like you can tell they're like clowning around.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Good stuff. But yeah, man, that's the energy I was bringing today, dude.
All right, that's a lot.
I had to drum it up. All right, I'm gonna scale it back.
You're bringing that '90s attitude air.
This is my like second cup of coffee, so I think that's like part of it. Usually when we start this, I'm working on the second cup, so we'll start raising up towards the end of the pod, and it's like, all right, it's time to go, and it's like, what the fuck was Gimpy doing? Sleep on the job? And yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, always, man.
Shit, bro. I was out there looking for 20,000 friends to jump on this pod. I got
just
two.
Out there going there.
I got two.
You know, there you go, man. Hand out flyers at your local breakdance club. Is that
on the block?
Yeah.
Oh,
like
shit.
Dance choreography and breakdancing. You're like, we're gonna go to this breakdancing class.
Right,
and,
right.
This is
while you are popping and locking, here's a nice podcast for you to listen to.
Yeah, man.
Is that a thing? Anyway, so what have you been up to lately, bro?
Not much. I've still been just playing Overwatch. I've been hanging out playing Battlegrounds. Like Overwatch has been going pretty good. Like you're like kind of commenting on where it's like, I'm kind of like falling into like two mains that can like hard carry in matches. So instead of like focusing on every character, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to pick like one or two of these and get really good with them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I could see the evolution of your Junkrat game, actually, and it's been very, very fun to watch. And while I can catch a lot of your streams, this week I think I missed 2, maybe 3 of them, so I was like, I wasn't super supportive this week, but I was watching all your shorts. And,
don't worry about it, bro.
And your Junkrat has definitely elevated. Like I could see it. Just you're also your game sense for it. You're just, like I see like a lot of points people are like rushing towards your point, right? Like and you're guarding it. You'll cluster pack down, flank them from the side, and then I see just raining down grenades and stuff, and they have no idea where you are for a good 30 seconds. And then when they look and turn on you, you'll booster pack to the other side. So I was like, that's some good game sense right there, dude. I'm surprised you're not back to gold yet. Honestly, like you're close, right? Or is it just like a tough carry?
So I've been thinking about this, where it's like I'm not sure if it's my internet or because I'm streaming while I'm playing. There's definitely like about a 1 to 2 millisecond delay, like on where my cursor is. So, and I can't tell if it's like on my side or because I'm in like silver rank, if it's everybody else has bad internet. And so like the game's adjusting for where they think they will be.
It could be OBS too, dude. Like I'm guessing.
I don't know. There's a lot of things. So I've been playing off stream now to like just see how the game so different, dude. Like I was like I have a video of me playing like Reinhardt now, dude. I have a team kill in there because like it's still placing me against silver people, but I don't have that lag without OBS. So like I jump over a car, hammer down on this dude, use the ult, knock down the other 3, uses like push, knocks all 3 of them into the wall, knocks them all down, and just like wiped out the whole team. And I'm like, why can't I do that while I'm streaming? That was like the sickest thing. Like just explain it. It's like, yeah, okay, you sound like you kind of exaggerate. I remember thinking like, this is amazing while I was doing it. I was like, I can't believe I actually got this off. Like, because normally I would be dead by now. So
yeah. I think there's an OBS issue, and probably just need to tweak some settings and stuff, because
it's weird that people don't believe you too, or think you're lying. When I'm like,
100%, dude.
No, because I was telling my other buddy about this, and he's like, it's a millisecond delay, right? That's what's going on about it. I'm like,
remember when I was playing Halo at Heart of the Tables, dude, and I was like, nah, this is off, and you guys are all like, fuck, dude, you're just drunk. I'm like, no, it's seriously off. Fucking Butters was the only one who jumped up in my defense, dude. He's like, I get it, bro. It's you, I believe you.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference, man. So no, just props to you, dude. I see the growth, and it's been amazing.
So I've been
been
just doing that
as a fan.
I've been playing, Battlegrounds, the Hearthstone, and that's been going really good. I've been doing like these. I think I've gotten to like pretty decent elo now, where I'm like 4,000 or whatever. I just started. Well, like I've only been playing that for like a week or 2, and I'm just crushing it in that. And my strategy is just like whatever looks cool on my board. That's what I've been doing. And it's like it's got to be up to like a pretty high rank. So I feel good about that.
Nice, dude. Nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I've this week for me, man, the Battlefield beta. Unfortunately, I guess people figured out how to stream it without it being complete ass on a single PC stream. My buddy ended up setting up a 2 PC stream just to stream that game, and had some fun with it. But I gotta say, man, like those great plays you're talking about, I really wish that streaming was working. I think Butters streamed it. I have to go in and look at his VOD to see if he caught anything I did. There was one point where I was parachuting in, and I cut my cord, pulled out the M5 recoilless just RPG, and I was falling next to a helicopter, just blasted it, and exploded it, and then Heart of the Table looks up and goes, "Oh shit, you got it?" I was like, "Yeah, dude." And then another helicopter comes up, and I blast that too as it's like swooping in. I shoot like way to the left of it because I see its path, right?
Yeah.
So I shoot nowhere near it, and it just collides perfectly, and it explodes above us, and that helicopter's like flipping and just goes right above our heads. It was insane, and it was like, holy shit, how the fuck? I was like, yeah, dude, this is what I do. I'm just out here playing Battlefield,
blowing things up.
Yeah, dude.
I heard they have like a hurricane in that game.
Yeah,
like
it was
in the middle.
a tornado. You can
tornado?
jump into it, and you fly around, and you can kill people while you're in it, and then you can just fly across the map. It's actually, right. it's
if they're taking design notes, add sharks to the hurricane or the tornado. Just add sharks into that tornado.
So I had it to where the tornado was on the place where the rocket lifts off, and the tornado, I'm pretty sure, affected the rocket, because as I was flying around, the rocket was like going with me, dude, as it was going up, and people were shooting it. I don't know if you are the one destroying it, or if something happens in game where it destroys it, because sometimes it doesn't launch all the way. Sometimes it'll blow up and just wreck shit across the map. So that's what happened. I'm in the tornado, I'm fighting people, right? I'm flying around, I can't see shit. I'm losing health just from being in the tornado. All of a sudden, the rocket comes comes up. I'm looking down, and there's a fucking rocket flying up to me. I'm like, this is fucking sweet. So everything happens, and then it explodes. Like we're all in the middle of it. That the rocket, I swear, it's killed like half the server because we were all in the tornado.
I started downloading that beta. I think it was today, right? Still, did I miss it?
I think it ends today.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna play some of that after this, dude. Like, I downloaded it, and then like when I tried to start up, it was like, "Oh, you need to update your NVIDIA drivers and restart your computer." It's been months, hasn't it? I'm like, "Yeah, it has."
Yeah.
I was like, "I'm not doing any of that. I'm gonna watch boxing."
Dude, I played
that
it.
Wilder Tyson Fury fight, dude.
I completely spaced that fight, dude.
There was no advertisement for it anywhere, dude. Like, we're talking like big boxing fight fans. We're like, that's happening, like because like Tyson Fury had a fight that got canceled earlier this year, like so I don't know, Wilder just was out there struggling the whole fight, but like I don't know, there was zero advertisement for it, zero build up, zero, like both those guys not the best talkers. They're like, I'm gonna beat you up, no, I'm gonna beat you up. I'm like, this is kind of embarrassing, but they had like the most ridiculous entrances. They had WWE level entrances. This man came out, like this will sound like I'm making things up. He came out with a Spartan 300, a day, dude, because his boxing name is the Gypsy King.
Okay. Okay.
He comes out like this, like literally Spartan 300s, a dancing gypsy, and then like he comes out full Roman legionnaire garb with a spear, bro.
That's
like,
awesome. That's awesome as hell.
Entrance, dude. I'm like, what is
it.
this? It's the most anime entrance ever, dude. Like, so I don't know. Boxing is a ridiculous sport. They're like trying to make it entertaining. I've heard like the comments have been like, when your sport's so boring, like you have to try and make it entertaining in other ways.
Right.
But yeah, man, it's there's no advertisement for that, but I don't know. So
yeah, that's all right.
I was going nowhere with that. Some observations about boxing.
Yeah, for sure. We had that conversation on boxing and the merits, and then the struggles it has. So I mean, as you said before, it is the sweet science, but the sweet science is boring to watch, like unless you're really into it. So it is what it is. Was it a good fight though, or what?
So I'm really boring to watch.
Oh really?
No, it was really good. No, it was they're both going for knockouts. Like both people got like knocked out at different like parts of the fight.
Yeah.
Like I think Tyson Fury was down for like 5 or 6 seconds. Wilder got like completely knocked out there. Like it was nuts, dude. Like both of them were just like kept getting knocked down and like kept getting back up. Like it was they were really angry and wanted to fight, dude. It seemed like they had like some aggression going on.
That's like, good though. That's what makes a good fight. There's
not, especially like the fight right before that was like a more technical like Cuban boxer like Sanchez. Yeah, and that was like the sweet science of boxing. Like he wins, by points. This one was like a straight up like old school 90s like brawl fest, dude. Like
nice,
so it's I don't know, I'm sure someone's like probably put up like a highlight compilation or something of it somewhere.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out probably after this pod when I'm working on last week's episode. But yeah, dude, that's nuts. So Battlefield 2042, that beta was fun. I'm actually looking forward to the full release. I'm not going to pre-order, and I don't think I'll get it day one. I want to see how optimized it is, because it ran fine. Just, it's one of those things where Battlefield, the betas are always unoptimized, horribly coded pieces of shit. And then when the full release comes out, it's an unoptimized, horribly coded piece of shit, but it's better than the beta. So
they're like, there's a patch coming. There's like a promise, like a roadmap to like where they're going to get to.
So, like...
They're like, listen, by 2052, this will be the best game ever made.
The best part about this new Battlefield, though, not just like the hurricanes and tornadoes and all that shit, but there's this thing that will be on full release called Battlefield Portals, and you go into that and you can play within that engine the rules from previous Battlefields, from 1942, Bad Company, Battlefield 3, all that, and I guess all of the maps are back. Like for that scale. So this is like the MCC of Battlefield.
So they built this engine for a while now, and it's been out there, but like we don't get it in the US. That's the only difference. So this is what they use in like Southeast Asia. Yeah.
Frostbite's, but you can use it.
So they put it in like LAN cafes. So like LAN cafes, the way they interact is completely different than like how traditional like, so LAN cafe, like they've been using like those things like Origin and like Steam and stuff.
Yes, because you have a LAN version. Yes.
Yeah. So it's the same thing they built there to deploy like all the different games like by different rule sets. So they've been doing this for a while there, but now they're bringing it here, and it's like it's good. Like this is a way superior way to play, but I don't know. So the way they got with the LAN cafe is like subscription model, where like you pay to use the like internet. So
Yeah.
it's they had to like design games like slightly different. So it's yeah, it's almost like we're all like joining the LAN cafe with like Origins and like Xbox Pass and like
Right.
PlayStation Store. Like it's almost like the exact same model where like everybody's like, hey, you're gonna have access to like the Master Chief Collection.
Oh
You're gonna
no,
have
I see what you're saying.
access to like
This is actually in game though. Like
yeah
it's
yeah
not
yeah
Origin. It's in game. I see what you're saying, but this is like complete engine upgrades, but then they're also emulating their old engines too.
yeah
Which there's like a blog about it. So yeah, it says it definitely is like a cafe style of thing. I remember. Have you ever been to like the U.S. tried to do an internet cafe thing before? There's been like little hub spots. Have you ever been to one?
I've gone to like two, yeah, like in the 90s, bro.
Yeah,
it was a thing.
yeah.
It was a thing. All
Because
right.
when Steam first launched, you could go into one of these places, and the main games were already downloaded and installed, and their keys were called and they're still around just in the Asian territories. They're cafe keys. So
yeah.
you can't, if they get banned, only that specific cafe key gets banned, but the cafe has just a deal with Valve already to where if someone gets banned, they're just banned that day, but you can't ban the entire cafe, so they just refresh a new key. So that's why a lot of the times you get a lot of cheaters in the Asian territories, because there's no way to stop them. They're paying for their time, and you can ban them for a second, but then a new key gets generated for them because the cafe still needs to run.
Yeah, they're like, hey, I can't get in this game, and the cafe manager's like, yeah, okay, hold on.
Yeah. Here in where we are, there used to be a LAN spot in the cities where they had Counter-Strike, and before, like, this was like right before League of Legends became League of Legends as we know it. And they just kind of primarily switched to that, and they realized they didn't have to really upgrade their computers because that game runs on a toaster.
Yeah, dude, it's great.
They had like league tournaments and Dota and stuff, but it had Counter-Strike Source on it, and they just hosted a random Counter-Strike Source tournament. And I'm like, I was literally just, it was like by one of the malls here, and my mom was like just shopping. My mom and sister were shopping. I was with her. I was 14 or something at the time. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go here, check out this place. It was like $10 to join a Counter-Strike Source thing, and then it was like a random grab bag. So you could, whoever you got matched with, that was your team for the whole tournament. We placed fourth out of like 16 teams or something like that, which was one. That's how long my mom and sister were shopping, because holy shit.
it's a long, they're like, yeah. But didn't even notice you were gone. They're like, is he still at that LAN cafe? He's probably fine.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, he got kidnapped, and no.
It's just like, here's $5, like find entertainment for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, okay, I can do that.
So that was an interesting experience, because that's what my first thought of a LAN cafe with a LAN key, because we weren't playing online, but I was like, I play this at home, and it's like, it's the same, but just there was a little difference with it. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I think it's just because I was playing on LAN, like
it's the delay, man. It's the milliseconds delay. It's the personal interaction. Like it's
right.
It changes everything, man. It's a different dynamic, man.
Yeah, dude. But yeah, man, there's something to be said about the topic that you brought up this week.
Yeah.
You want to get into it a little bit?
Because trying to make progress and like roadblocks, you might run into while doing that. So
yeah. You hit me on the head last week with your quitting talk, so this one is a little easier to swallow on the.
Yeah, you're like, all right, making progress. That's good.
So, that's good. Quitting.
That's gotta be making progress. Starting up.
Yeah.
So I was talking about like roadblocks are basically when like you stop making progress, or you feel like you're no longer making progress. So it's one of the things where it's like it could be a feeling, but like you need to also have like some sort of metric. So like that kind of comes into like when you have like a bigger goal. So you like work backwards from there, right? So you're like, all right, I'm going to set up like a goal for this week, or goal for this month, and I'm going to try and like hit that. or you're like, I want to get like this many lines of code done, or like write for like this much time every day. Like, and so like if you're not like keeping track of that, like you don't know if like is like your process not right, and like that's why you're not making progress, or is like your measurables like not like hitting the target goal. So I feel like it's good to like assess like what actually is a roadblock, and then like ways to prevent that. And like I don't know, it can be like adjusting like your goal as well, but instead of like having like a bigger goal, you're like, okay, if I'm consistently hitting this, I'm gonna like lower like the metrics I'm gonna try and hit. So it's like if you're trying to write for like half an hour, and then like at the end of the week you only got like 2 out of the 7 days, you can be like, all right, am I not making progress because I'm bad at writing, or I'm not writing, like. So I don't know. It's
I think so. Would you say like setting the goalposts to a reasonable distance is like a key to that? Because
I would say do what you can do, right? So it's like if you can only do like 10 minutes of writing, then like move your goal instead of like I'm gonna write for 30 minutes to 10 minutes, because I know I can do like 10 solid minutes, and then just hit that.
Yeah, no. There's something to be said if you hit your 10 minutes every day, but like your quantity can you can do more. And I'm sorry for hitting my mic. So your quantity you can do more, and your quality is, if that's maintaining the same, would you set the goalpost a little higher? Instead of 10 minutes, do 15? Or are you going to say that hitting that goal is more important than like maximizing your efforts?
I would say you have identified the problem, right? Because you have a metric.
Sure.
So if you identify that you're not hitting the 10 minutes, or like the quality's not there, you identified the problem, right? Because the problem isn't that you're not writing 10 minutes, it's you're asking, is the quality there? And so now that you've identified the problem, you can set like a new goal to get around your roadblock, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
So you're like, now I need to work on quality, because I can write faster, but the quality's not there, and I can write slower, but like it's not as good. So I kind of found like a sweet spot, and like, what is that? Or like, what's happening? Where it's like, I can write like a good paragraph, but then I have to edit it down, and it's like a sentence.
Right.
So you're like, I can write basically a good sentence. And it's like, well, all right, that's, why is it only that? And then like, instead of asking, maybe the problem is like brute forcing it, what you're recommending, right? So instead of like, you're like, oh, instead of 10, we can up the amount, right? So we have a measurable.
You hit the goal for a while. It's like in any like production sense, you keep hitting your marks, and there's time left on the table. You can add more time to it and see if you can hit those marks. If you don't, you adjust it back. It's like the chicken and egg scenario. It's like,
right. I'm saying like in like a physical production sense, you're 100% right. But like when you switch it to creative, you can like get better at like creative endeavors. Like basically, if you wanted to do the physical analogy, it would be like you have a machine that can like crank out 15 widgets an hour.
Yeah,
you're like, if we just run it for 2 hours, we get 30 widgets instead of 15. For the creative process, you're designing that machine. So instead of like thinking in terms of like, I'm only doing 15, be like, how can I create a better machine that's going to make 15,000 of these, right, in that same amount of time? So you have to go back to like the fundamentals and like break down like what's actually going on in like your process, that you're not hitting your goal, right? And then that should be your new goal, is to like figure out how to better that process, or like whatever that problem is. So I think it's like we get stuck in more traditional thinking though, of like, as like it's a factory, and like you're just a machine as an artist, like just keep doing more of like like,
I was gonna say it as because game creation takes you are a man of many hats when you're creating a game, especially if you're doing it solo. Like, you're not only the artist, you're the programmer, you're the game designer, you're level designer, you're VFX, you're marketing, you're every part of this process.
Yeah.
So I feel with the thing like you're saying, like setting goals and things like that, compartmentalizing is definitely a good thing for game creation. Like, yeah,
because you have to have like multiple things that you're doing, multiple hats that you're wearing. So it's
right.
You gotta have to like figure out how best to spend your time like amongst those things.
Yeah. No, and I completely agree with that. And I think just for what's worked for me in the past, because my favorite part of game creation is the level design. So a lot of
Yep.
times if I'm stuck on like a coding piece and actually how you said to set your day, to set like goals to just work on one thing, that
Yep.
I'm probably going to add that to my thing to see if that helps. But if I get stuck on a coding problem and I work on it for a while and I'm just at a roadblock and I can't figure it out at that moment, I will continue working on the level or a level. If I'm working on a
Yeah.
platformer especially, I'm just like building a level because that's something like I can do. It clears my mind and it lets me be creative, adding to the game without necessarily being on that same part that I was stuck on. You
Okay.
know,
So for me, like this is my process for that same problem. When I run into a coding problem, I stop and then I like try and do like half an hour to an hour of research on like what other people have tried. Then I go back and I like try and apply like those lessons learned for like half an hour. And if I still can't get it, then I go out to a different part of the process. So like, oh, but like I kind of set like 2 hours and I'm like, I try to find a solution by using like multiple sources right away. And then like I just spend time like thinking about it because like it's not like you're done with the problem. Like your brain needs like time to like work out how to fix it almost. Like it's
yeah,
weird, right? The
yeah.
creative process is
So
weird.
yeah, and that's you're right. So that's kind of something I want. I'm glad you have a different process because this is something I wanted to hit on the head with this. So how I deal with roadblocks is I will go a different route completely, not even in the
Yeah.
same just avenue. Just eventually it will lead me back to that same part because for me, level design is something that I can just mindlessly do, and it will like refresh, like give me it's like a mouthwash for the brain. It's like I'm working
Yeah.
on something different that I can go back and go, oh, this is the issue, and 9 times out of 10 I'll look back at the code and go, oh, and
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that works for me, but that's also something that works in other aspects of my life. If we move away from game creation, like say I was still in school and it was like I was doing homework or something, I would stop, play video games, go back and go, oh, okay, here we go. And
Yeah, I was the type that would procrastinate, do the homework at the last second. I'm like,
no, so
yeah, I
would
probably
I.
should do
But
this.
but like I was the one who always did the homework in class if there was time. I'm like, because I didn't
Yeah.
like to do it at home because I just wanted to play video games all day. And then if I had to bring it home, I would wait till like the night before or even the morning of, and do it. But a lot of times it would just be because I took a break. Like even now, working in my adult life, if I'm stuck on something, I load up like Slay the Spire, Binding of Isaac, something, or do like a quick multiplayer match of something, and then jump right back into it because I need a completely different like frame of thought or mindset or whatever.
Yeah, you gotta get your
to
mind off
continue
the task.
on my problem. And I realized that at a very young age, but I guess my outlet just isn't socially acceptable from the old school way of thinking. It's like, oh, this guy's just playing video games. He's not working. No, I've worked. I just need a different outlet.
Do you keep something to write with while you're like doing these other things? Because like I found that's helped me like tremendously, like creatively. It's like, so I'll be doing other things and like I'll get like an idea or like something, and then like I immediately write it down now. Like I've been using like an app on my phone where I just like, so I just have like a wall of like a brick of text of like different ideas or like things that come to my head throughout the day.
I have like WordPad open quite a bit
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, like
yes.
I like pulled up Notepad before here. I was like, oh, let me get out some of my thoughts. I'm just like, like
Yeah, actually, the stealth game idea came up from when we were doing our discussion on stealth games. And I had an idea. I immediately like WordPad was just open on those, and I immediately wrote that down so I wouldn't forget. So yeah. I think that's something too, and I think you and I are at a point where we kind of realize that. Have you always done that, or is that something you incorporated later?
It's something I definitely started doing later, like in the. It's a little bit after school. Well, like after I was like finished up with school and I was like out in the workforce, I was like, I have a lot of different ideas. Like I gotta like just start writing things down, writing down notes. So like I also just started like a WordPad on my computer, and so like I have like just documents where like I just have like different ideas and stories or whatever, and then I start like doing it more like on my mobile device now, and because like it's easier than like, but I keep stuff everywhere. So I have a notepad in the living room. I have a notepad here. I have like a little like flipping book. So I was like, yeah, I wouldn't want like a 99-cent pencil and like a 89-cent like notepad keep me from like writing down like creative ideas, dude. So just people come up with all sorts of excuses like, it's costume. I'm like, what are you talking about? Just get like a simple situation, dude.
Right.
People overthink it. Like
it's like comedians and writing down things that are funny that they want to, or jokes that they thought of that they want to work on later. It's like the same thing. You always have something to write with.
What about you? Was it something you always did, or is it more recent where you started like writing stuff down?
So it's something that kind of organically grew. There was a point in my life where I was competing in gaming tournaments, but I wanted to give other people the chance to do it, because like in the region we're in, gaming tournaments were few and far between. So I thought if I could do one monthly or semi-monthly that you can always count on, that'd be something that this community could use. So I got another buddy and we put on a tournament for Halo back in the day. It was for Halo 3, and it did really well. We did like grassroots marketing, things like that. I rented the space. We supplied the Xbox's controllers, things like that. And what happened was one of my copies of Halo got stolen. One of the things. So we learned a lot. Just like one, beef up security. Two, like other things.
Yeah, people steal shit.
But like inventory management too, because we didn't really write down who had it, who had what. It was just like, oh, it's our stuff, no one's gonna take it, right? We're trusting to a fault. So writing down things to verify is what started it. And then when I started on my creative outlet for game creation, and at first it was animation, actually, when I was messing with Flash, I was working on an animation, and I wouldn't storyboard, but then when I started storyboarding, I was like, oh, it's so much easier to go here because I remember. So then storyboarding in Flash led to, ideas in game creation, and that's kind of what led to it. So yeah, it was a process.
All right. So this is a bit tangential, but do you thumbnail before you like try and storyboard?
No.
Like, do you thumbnail out like what you want your storyboard to look like?
No, because I already know it. I've been using the same storyboard.
See, same thing. So this will take your storyboard to the next level. Is like start thumbnailing out the entire thing beforehand.
Okay.
And then because it's gonna take you so much less time to do quick thumbnails, and then you're gonna learn like what you want the shot to look like from those thumbnails.
Interesting.
Before like you like build it up like an actual like storyboard for like whatever you're shooting. Like it's a game changer, man.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but it's like kind of like the same thing as like a note where you're like, are gonna bullet point like an idea. It's like thumbnails are like bullet pointing like your idea
for storyboards. Yeah, that's good actually.
That's free sauce, dude.
Yeah, definitely try that. But I think it's something where you said that when you get a roadblock, just having a different outlet is something for me that works well. And people, especially getting started in game design, a lot of times you will get stuck. You will get stuck a lot. Like your first game is something that it's just you persevered through hardship, and that's everyone's first game. Whether it's click the dot, bounce the ball, whatever, you're going to have problems. But that's not the end of the world. You just have to figure out how to work through the problems. Yeah,
it's finding the solutions. Like that's the key. But like you gotta identify like those problems. So it all kind of ties back to roadblocks. So it's like when you run into problems, like those are gonna be like roadblocks, and like if you identify like what that problem is, and like can figure out how to make progress on that goal. That's key. It's like you're gonna run into problems, but that's always part of the process. And like some of those roadblocks, you should look at like how you can take different roads to get to it. I don't know. I think like it's kind of weird because everyone has a different method, and I say like you figure out what method works best for you. So like I don't know, like we both do things very differently, but like I wouldn't like say like use my process. This is the best process. I'm like no, this is the best process for me. But like I think when you like discuss like your creative process with like other creative people, like it helps like you could get like a good idea maybe that you can apply to like your process. But and that kind of just comes back to research. You gotta be constantly doing like a little bit of research, not a ton, but I would say like at least an hour a day. I don't know, like some amount of time should be looked into like getting better at like whatever type of art you're doing. Look at like who's like best at that art, and then like see what performs best for them,
This is something that I'm glad you mentioned, and I want to elaborate a little bit more. I think when we're creating something, it gets to the point where it's you against the world, right?
Yeah.
But what's helped me is talking things out with other creative people in the same field, right? Like I can talk to you about game design and you get it. You know, if I'm even if it's something as mundane as putting a character on, like making a character move, you get it, and it's something that it gives me an outlet to discuss things, and maybe it's something that I'm trying to work out. So I can talk to you on game design. I can talk to my brother-in-law as well, and you both get it. And I think that that's something that's hugely missed in a lot of people who are working solo on something, where you don't have an outlet to talk about what you're working on. Because a lot of times when you talk about game creation to people who aren't in it, they'll go, "That's cool," and then continue on with their lives, or "You should do this," but they have no idea what it takes to do that thing they're suggesting, so they move along. I remember I was working on a mobile game, right? And I was working in banking at the time. I was actually working in a branch, and I was playing the nightly build, and I was playing it every day the day before. People were like, "This is great, you should release it." I'm like, "No, there's this problem, this problem, this problem." They're like, "I don't even notice that." I was like, "Yeah, but I do, and I know that it's game breaking," you know?
It's like everything else is fine, but if you run into this one pixel, the whole thing implodes.
Yeah, exactly. I had a sound bug where I couldn't figure out. It just turned out to be a layering issue because you put code blocks in different layers. But so whenever you would get to a certain point, you'd like double tap on an object.
Sound effect.
The sound effect would loop, and I just couldn't figure it out. Yeah,
like, what is going on here?
so it would loop and then randomly get louder. So I'm like, what the fuck? So that was a fun one to figure out. But it took weeks to figure this out. I don't know what the fuck I did, but these people had no idea what it took. And then when I was like kind of done with the project, because I was like, it's fun, but it doesn't have the longevity that I was personally looking for, so I just shelved it. But they were like, you should make this. You should do this. Like, that's the worst part about telling people that you make games is everyone has an idea for your game, right?
I would say that's any artistic field you're in. Like, if you're a painter, people are like, "Oh man, you should paint this. You should paint that." Like, it doesn't matter. Like, everyone's just like,
real quick.
I think that's like recognize that's like a goal that maybe they would have if they had that ability. But like, I wouldn't. I try to just be like, "Oh yeah, thanks for the idea." Like that's all I say now. I'm just like, "Yeah, thanks for the idea." But like, I'm like, "Oh, I realize like that's kind of like what they would want." And then I try and keep that in mind, like creatively, it's like what other people's like internal creative expression is. So if they're like, "Oh, you should paint flowers," I'm like, "Oh, a person must like flowers." Like,
yeah.
I'm like, yeah. That's what I think. Like, or like, "Oh, you should paint a picture of like my family, my dogs." Like, "Oh, a person must really like like that's." If they could like have one painting, that's what it'd be. And I feel like that's for like game design and stuff, where it's like if they could have one game, this is what it'd be like make it Pokemon but Smash Bros, and like you throw out new Pokemon while you're in the battle arena, but you're also a Smash Bro in the background, like Ash Ketchum, bro. And you're like, that sounds cool and stuff, but like
a lot of it is people will pitch things that I'm just not interested in. Yeah. Like maybe I'm interested in playing, but not interested in creating. People are like, "You should make this RPG." I'm like, "No way in hell."
Yeah.
I'm not going to
write like a novel, bro. Just write like a short form, open-ended novel.
Can you should make this like an RPG, and you can have this story. It'll be super cool. Oh, great! Can you rewrite Lord of the Rings from scratch for me while I'm doing this? Like, no one's going to fucking do that.
It's a lot of work, bro.
Yeah, like I like RPGs too, man, but I'm not making one. I'm not making like a fucking 20-hour epic. At least not now. I have no drive for that. So that's something.
Like I always just think of it as like that's something they like, right? It's
yeah.
And so I just try to be polite. I'm like, "Oh yeah, thanks for the idea. That's it." That's like, to be like, I don't even engage. I'm not like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
But like that's any creative field. I'm sure. Like if you're a sculptor, someone's like, "Oh man, you should sculpt this, dude." And like, all right, yeah, thanks.
So I will say, so we're talking Roadblocks, right? And me mentioning that was kind of was to lead into this. Roadblocks aren't always mental. They're not always, you can't get a roadblock from a third party, right? From an outside source. How would you deal with that? Because let me tell you a story about me, and this is just growing up. As I've said before on the pod, like I've been making things off and on for my life. The very first thing I made, I was like 10 to 12 years old or something like that. I was working on Click and Create, and I made my first game. My dad or mom were all like, "Oh, this is cool." I don't know if they actually realized the gravity of what I just did as a 10 to 12-year-old, but they're like, "Okay, cool." But they didn't like nurture that. It didn't go, oh, he's interested in doing this, maybe we should do things to help him
Yeah.
with this. No fault of their own, just they just didn't do that. And then there was a point where I was really invested in this, right? So I wanted to, and we had one family computer, but my sister also wanted to play games on the computer, so we'd have an hour each. So my roadblock was
Just
time,
time. Yeah.
time from something I couldn't change. Then working on creative stuff now, my roadblock again is time, because I have children, I have a full-time job, I have other endeavors. Like you're saying scheduling and stuff is great, but what do you have any third-party factors and solutions that you could think could help with someone?
I would say I would keep your schedule more open, and then acknowledge and enjoy whatever's happening. Like if it's part of like one of your bigger goals. So like one of your goals, like if like is like try and be like a good parent, or like be a good kid, or like
right,
like what that may mean. But like it should also be like your goal should like be like part of that, or like so like you should think of your time more as like in chunks instead of like specific sections. So instead of being like, oh, for like 15 minutes I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do this, you should think, all right, within like this 4-hour period, this and this need to get done within like this time frame, so you can be more agile with whatever's happening in life. Whereas like if you don't have like whatever level of obligation you have to like, because there's like different things you have to get done like in life, like you have to like go to work, like to make money, to pay for things. So I mean, and hopefully at some point in your life you free like your time from your income, but like that usually doesn't happen till your golden years. Like it takes like like 45 years of saving to get to that point. Like that's like what nobody talks about. Like it's like, yeah, you could do that, but it's it's a long road. Like you're not gonna like, nobody really starts with that. It's a very small percentile, but so the vast majority of people, like,
right.
You have like obligations you have to meet, and so I would think more in broad chunks of time instead of like very narrow strips, and then whatever's going on, just like what I tell myself, because I used to get upset when like physical roadblocks or things would come up. Like there's like certain obligations you have to go to, but like maybe they're running long or something. You're like, I don't really want to leave. I have to like spend time here. Like instead of like thinking like I got this other thing I gotta do, I just think like I'm exactly where I want to be, doing exactly where I want to be, like with and like talking to, and I'm gonna enjoy this moment. And like I try to like, because like I think like guilt and stuff can like start building up in your head. Like I say like, if you think in chunks and like your bigger goals of like being having good relationships with like your family and friends and everything that's important to you, like you like people aren't robots. Like you should think more of like, my bigger goals are like I want to strengthen these relationships, get like progress in like these like artistic or like things I'm passionate about, and then like I want this much free time or reward time, because I think that's like a huge like component. Is like even if you just like do something, but it's not a lot, and then like do something rewarding, or like try and do something like listening to like an audio book like while you work out or something. So it's like you stack up like good habits, and you make more time like every time you do something. So it's tough. It's different for everybody. Like it's much like the creative process is not like a one thing fits all, but I think it's good to think about.
Yeah. So what Roblox have you had on? I'm gonna ask two part question. What Roblox have you had on your Click Hero release, and what Roblox are you currently experiencing on Generic Quest, and what have you done to overcome those?
So in Click Hero, I felt like the game was done, but like like it's never really done, and like we've talked about this where it's like reaching out to a community of creatives. So I got on like a couple of different discords, and I was like, hey guys, I'm like these are other video game developers, indie game devs.
Yes.
So it's like these kind of Discord groups, and like I was in there and I was like, hey, I'm like pretty sure I'm done with this game. Like, can you guys take a look and like let me know if you find any bugs? I'd really appreciate it. And like you'd be surprised, like when you're actually like a member of those community, like people will like reach out. And so like I had like 4 or 5 people and be like, hey man, you should do this. Hey, you should do this. Like change this and this up. And it's other game developers. So they were really good like suggestions. And like I didn't take like any one person's suggestion, but like if like 3 people were saying it, 3 different people, I'm like, okay, this is this is 100% like that's like almost like a committee. So I was like, it's like the power of like a sourcing a group thing where it's like, because in the back of your head you have to think, how much time do I actually have to implement any solution, and like how good of an idea is this to like the return on investment, because like I feel like I was already done. So like one of them was like do a tutorial so people can like figure out how like what to do, and I'm like, all right, I know how to use Photoshop, that'll take me 15-20 minutes, done. One was like, oh, like I would appreciate if like these numbers would show up, and I was like, I think all I have to do is add like a text, you know,
text box and generate it from code, right?
Yeah, generate like a variable that like populates that code from like a bool or whatever, or like a string. So I had to convert that. It wasn't hard. So I was like, all right, I know that will take me probably like half an hour because I had to like figure out like a bunch of stuff. So I was like, all right, done. That has to be done because like it helps plan out for things. So I would look at like things like that, and then I'd be like, if it didn't take up like more than a couple of hours, I would do it immediately. For those immediate like benefits, and I would did that until I just lost drive to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And then I was like, because like all I'm doing is incrementally improving, right? At this point, like the game is 98% there, and the last 2% is just bug fixing.
Yes.
And I'm like, all right, I know about like this, and this, and then like I got rid of all the game breaking things because there's like certain menus and stuff you could get stuck in, like if you went down like a weird path, but like so there's just weird stuff you don't have time to go and like find. So like having like a community of people you can bounce ideas off of and like have them look at like the really impactful. For generic quests, my biggest roadblock has just been myself, man. I just like I know what I have to do, and like it's like we said, there's like different level of task you can do, and like when one's really hard, you avoid it, so you do something else simple. So I have like the opposite problem right now, where it's like the last big chunk is like deployment to like different platforms and stuff, and maybe like tightening up some code. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to go through this code. Like, so like that's basically it. Like that's my biggest roadblock. I'm like, I don't really want to do it. So I've been trying to find ways to just finish up other parts of the game. I've been working on like the level parts or like whatever else, and then like I just peter off. I'm just like, oh, I'll get to this later, and then later never happens, dude. Like that's a bad plan.
Got it.
I don't know. Like I've been thinking about more and more. I've bought a new planner up here on my wall, and I'm gonna just start scheduling things. And like this one's a little bit different than like a normal planner, where it just has like basically like to-do lists. So it's like a washable board where I'm like, all right, today I got to do this, and this. So I got to just add generic quest onto that and just start executing that little.
Yeah. There's something like, there's something that I wanted to touch on, and we do have time, so I can talk about this. There is a indie dev that I've been following for a while. He just released his first game. The game is called Nykra, I believe that's how you pronounce it, or maybe Nykra. It's Nykra. It just released on Steam a few weeks ago at the time of this posting, and it's his very first game. He was learning game dev as he was making this, right? Yeah. So, and the game released with bugs, right? And shout out to the dev here. He's doing everything in his power to fix it, but he is currently dealing with something that we've talked about multiple times on the pod, is your game never releases in a complete state, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that he's dealing with now is he didn't have, he's one guy, he didn't have a team to do bug fixes, and if there were any bugs present, it was up to him, right, to find these and do it. But when you work in a tunnel, you know how to navigate the tunnel, right? Yeah. So no one else does. Yeah. So
like there's certain things you're gonna do to play test your own game again and again and again, is what Gimpy's talking about. So it's like you never, like there's certain bugs like you'll run into, like maybe it's like clipping issues or something, where like somebody will jump and crouch in an area you just never thought anyone would do. Yep. And then there's a little like untouched like boundary box there, and like the character like moonshots or like falls underneath the map, or exactly this type of stuff. So there's like geometry issues, there's coding issues, where like you'll get to like where I talked about before is like a map maze, where it's like you'll go down a series of menus that you thought nobody would ever in their right mind would go through. Yeah. And now they're like, I can't get rid of the sale buy option. And you're like, why did you click sale and buy at the same time? And they're like, I don't know. Yeah, I thought it would just toggle over.
Yeah.
Like, so it just work like that because that's how it works everywhere else. You're like,
exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly. So the creator of Nikara, or Nikra, God, I need to see how to pronounce that name. But anyway, I apologize for butchering the name. But he's dealing with what we've talked about before and what I've dealt with, but not on the scale that he's dealing it with,
Yeah.
right? The things I've released were released on game jam sites, or they were released just as a proof of concept, and bugs were inherent, right? He released on Steam, where people are buying it, and the game's not working. So here's the worst part: is he has a very great gameplay concept, and people aren't getting to experience it because they can't beat it yet. So it's definitely a learning thing, and he is very inspiring because he realizes that he's like, shit, this sucks, but it's not taking him out of it, right? He's bug fixing. On release, he found a bug that was game breaking. So after the game was released, I'm pretty sure
like that's always the way, dude. Right?
Yeah.
Every time you go for final release and you launch it up, you're all excited. You're gonna play it, and then you're like, "What the no?"
Yep.
No.
Yep. Like I told you, our last game jam at final release, we were like 3 hours from launching, and we forgot to add player 2. The main part of our game, we forgot to go with player 2. It happens to all of us, and my heart goes out to the developer there, and I know you're going to do great. I actually purchased your game. I'm waiting for it to be fixed to play through it, but it's a very short game, narrative driven game, but amazing concepts, and I just wanted to give them a shout out and say that, we all go through it, believe me.
Yeah.
And the people who are sticking around, it's because you have a fantastic product and people who.
How would you solve that problem?
How would I solve it now?
Yeah, if you had the because we've talked about it, we've both released projects, games with problems. Yes. And we had to go back and fix things. How did you decide when to fix things, if it was worth fixing? Like you said, for your game not having player 2, were you just whatever, this is fine? Or how did you identify the problems? When did you know?
Does that problem take away from your game as a whole, for what you want your game to be about? Like the game that I was talking about released, it was a one-on-one fighter. You needed player 2. We had AI, but the main thing was to play against another person. So we couldn't release with that function missing. The other thing too is something we were working on a platformer, and we had a moonwalk bug, where if you were walking and you pressed back and forward at the same time, the sprite would flip, but your actual character wouldn't. So you could walk backwards, forwards, So that was just visually annoying, but we could have shipped with that, right?
Yeah.
But we decided not to because it was an easy fix. And
so were you deciding by things that were just easy, or all right, if it's easy, we should fix it? Right?
I would decide if the game functions with it, yes or no.
Okay, and then
a one-on-one fighter, you cannot release that.
For the moonwalking, you're the game functions without it, so it's a yes, but you still decided to fix it. Why?
Still decided to fix it because of ease of use, and on playtesting, more and more people were finding it out. If one person finds it out, not a big deal. We can fix it later, right?
Yeah.
And the big thing with the Nikara guy is he I'm sure he had playtesters as probably friends and family.
All right, wait 1 second. What's later to you? Right. So you're it's not a big deal. If it's one-offs.
Yeah.
I'll deal with that later. When is the later chunk?
Before release. Your final pass. Your final pass.
On the final pass, if you have time, or just later at that end?
Before release, because
this is interesting. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It might be.
Yeah, because if you fix the thing but it breaks something else, then your game instantly releases, right? So maybe that's why we run into problems, because because I think I do almost the exact same thing as well, where it's some small things, I'll just fix it real quickly right at the very end, and then I'll create the executable and put it out there, and then somebody's this breaks everything, and I'm damn.
Yeah. So with the Nikra guy, I'm pretty sure he had someone play through the game and bug test it, but it was probably someone who played through it the entire creative process, right?
Yeah.
So I think the main thing is finding someone to play the game that has never seen or touched your product before.
Yeah.
But also someone.
So when do you decide to do that?
For me, it's right when we're thinking about releasing it, where you yourself have played through it multiple
So
times.
for
And you're like, this
your
is it.
stealth game, when will I see pictures of that? When would you show it to like a friend?
You will see pictures of that in the coming week. You will see video of that in the coming week. As far as gameplay,
Right.
you will probably.
But
see
how
that
far along are you? Because like this whole time, like you just kind of been talking more on like concept, and like I'm just went along visually or like in the process. Do you feel like it's worth starting to like ask other creatives like for input and be like, hey, this is what I'm working on?
You will get it when the first level is done. Enemies have a cycle, and you can complete it. Nice. Like complete the first level.
For me, like I've been doing a lot of these edits, and I will show them to my buddies when I'm done with it. But I'm going to still do one final pass. So I like to like do like a final build, and then I like look at that and I watch it, and I'll watch it a couple of times, and I'll be like, all right, here's some of my notes that I noticed that I need to fix. And then I'll show it to my buddies in Discord, and I'll be like, hey guys, check this out. What do you think? And if all of them are saying like different things, I'm like, okay, these are already things I noticed. And it's like, these are interesting things I didn't notice that I could possibly fix.
Yeah.
And then when I go into my final pass, I try to take like, if, like I said, like more than like whatever it is, like 3 or 4 people are saying the same thing. I'll be like, all right, this is probably a thing I need to like try and fix immediately. Even if it's like just a weird adjustment or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I try to solve for the end user experience too. Like if they would question.
So I will say that you'll most likely get a build when like the first level's complete and when the first boss fight's complete. So just those, because it's the first level will be just gameplay, how to play it, right? And it's to a point where it's like the learning stages of playing the game, so you can get through it, and you've played enough games in general to, if there's anything big that I have to work on and I haven't seen it, you could probably see it, right? And you won't be the only one testing it, right? And then boss fights as well. Like a big part of my planned game is boss fights. So if that's broken, and it works for me every time because I know what to do, and you find a bug, that's how I know. So like testing the biggest parts of your game, I think, are huge. The levels that are based off of your big parts, I think you can get through with playtesting at the end of the day. Whenever you introduce a new concept, you should probably playtest that concept. Whenever you introduce a new, technique or something, probably playtest that technique once it's introduced. That's my thought.
I would almost recommend, because I feel like a lot of what you're saying is common sense to me.
It is, but it's also not.
I would say I would recommend like for people to try and like maybe get a job as like a paid beta tester almost at a game.
Yep, and that's actually one of my side jobs.
Yeah, we both had like that job before, and I'm like, I wonder if we just look at like how we, test at the end, just because we both had that experience.
Yeah, definitely.
I've beta tested like software before, like where it's just like forms and stuff. So I would be on like the phone with like the developer, and I'm like running through like checklist on like how to fix things.
Yeah,
and I don't think regular people usually don't do that. They usually like most people like aren't on the phone with like developers or like trying to. So I would almost like encourage people, maybe like even if they don't want to get a job beta testing, maybe like listen to like beta testers like on YouTube, like what they look for, like what their processes are and stuff, because there's a bit of almost like a methodical way that we go through games. I think most indie people won't understand.
True.
Unless they've tried to beta test
Getting a job as a beta tester definitely helps, honestly. And I'm not talking like these giant like Battlefield 2042 beta tests or Halo Infinite. Like
no, like not talking... like pre-buy the game and get access to the betas. No, we're talking like they're paying you to like look for, like it's usually
for bugs, breaking out of the map, seeing if
early
break,
alpha,
and
or like
reproducing it.
Yeah, so there's like, I would say there's almost stages of beta testing too.
I think
there's
that's
like,
what helps me in my day job too.
I think it helps everything. Like if you ever done like IT troubleshooting, like look at like a IT troubleshooting checklist. Yeah, and I know I have, where it's like identify the problem, like get rid of different variables. Like you kind of like go down a chain of things until like you find like what's breaking the chain of things. Yep. And I think most people don't apply that skill. Like that's a skill set that like we constantly apply.
Yeah. And I think that's what the Nycra dev was missing, right? He didn't have, like, he may have had people beta test it, but he didn't have people run it through the ringer. Like one of the issues was the game wouldn't save, right? That's a core part of your story driven game, is saving progress. they probably played it through all the way, right, without trying to save. He probably played it through all the way without trying to save and just wrote the code and it worked once and he thought, okay, great. You have to test that piece each and every time. And, it's a learning process. And like I said, he has a full release that I am so stoked to play once it's fixed.
So here's the thing, right? Because you say that and it sounds simple to normal people.
Yeah.
But when we say put it through the ringer, like you will find bugs where it's like on the 3,568th save, the game crashes and like the data becomes unrecoverable. But like, you find things like, if they hit this button 4,800 times, like this screen just glitches out, like things are stuck. Like if you move this inventory to like the 18 decimal places over or 12,000 decimal places over, like the game crash, like it ruins half your computer. So there's people who like will put your game through the ringer like that, where they like set up a lot of automation and then they have like human people as well, like like click through and like, because I think like when we say beta testing, people are like, oh yeah, whatever. It's like I played Battlefield, I know how beta testing works. So it's like I don't think like they understand like a full like problem solving suite that like a lot of companies will offer, but it costs money, and I would say like your friends will
yes, it costs money. I don't mean to interrupt, but it costs money. But that's the beauty of where we live now. The internet age, the Discord communities, things like that, Twitter, the Reddit game dev channel or subreddit, sorry, are such a phenomenal resource that use it. Interact with these communities, and I know sometimes it's a solitary effort of you game creating and you iterating and doing it yourself. It's so lonely, but I can't stress enough how well networking works. I'm lucky enough to know people in real life that I can just go over to their house and go, hey, I fucked up, can you help me with this? Like whether it's you, the professor, whoever. Not everyone has that. I take that for granted, truthfully, because one day you and Professor were like, hey, you want a game jam? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Not everyone has that. So definitely get to Discord communities. And honestly, me doing this podcast and stuff, if you're working on something, you need help, man, post in the comments, man. If I have time, I will definitely look at it. I would also like
get into like your niche groups too, because like I said, I found a bunch of stuff for specific like software things that I do and like specific programming languages. And like if you go into like those Reddits and stuff, they usually have like a Discord community, and like I like to get into those. Like if I have an immediate problem, or I also look at other people's immediate problems too, and be like, oh, can I help anybody else out today? Like, so I used to do that like a lot for 3D modeling. I was in like the Blender like 3D community, and like I knew like way more than the average person like does about like Blender because of how long I'd used it. And I was like, oh yeah, I should help out like some other people, because like there's just weird one-off things that you'll learn that like you don't really use anywhere else in the software. So I would go there and I'd just be like, yeah, here's like hotkeys, here's things like, and I don't know. I think it's just good to like give back to like those communities too, like if you can. But if you're just starting out, like, I would say like check FAQs because I'm sure like somebody else maybe has already asked it before, like that sort of thing. Like,
what's helped me as well? Creating a game dev journal as well, just like what you worked on today, any issues you had. Because looking back on it, it's something you could see your own personal growth in that field. So I think that's something that not a lot of people do. I think writers do it when they're writing a book or something. They'll have like keep notes on the other side where they got stuck. So, definitely. Or like the programmer thing of talking to the rubber duck, explaining it to the rubber duck and figuring it out helps a lot. It does help a ton.
So I started doing this as well, where like as I'm doing like my like goal for the week, I'll be like writing out like what I get done this week that I wanted to like get done, and like what didn't I get done, and then I was like, oh well, went good, what didn't. So I've been like breaking it down like at the end of the week, like into like what can I do coming up, and like when will I do it, and then like just kind of have like a chunk of time like assigned to it. But like I don't know, like everyone's process is gonna be different for that, but like you definitely actually have to do the action of whatever it is, writing, typing.
Yes. Don't just think about doing it, actually do this. So that I think that's a good way to end it here. That's our time. But thank you, Chip, for suggesting this. It's something that I think, especially since I'm working on something creative at the moment, it does make me think. And anyone who's here, because I know like we've been talking about the new releases and stuff, but at its heart for what we do is we both want to make games and not just play them. So
Yeah,
it's definitely something to food for thought. But any final closing thought on that, Chip?
just
did it.
to try to make some, like, definitely have some sort of goal that's measurable, and then if you're not making progress on that, like, identify why you're not making progress is going to be more helpful than just like beating yourself up about not having enough time. So I don't know. Try and position yourself for the most success, like when you're doing like creative things. So,
Yes.
what about you? Any final thoughts?
Final. We talked about a lot about bug testing, but take things that work with navigating these roadblocks, and your method might be different from mine. It might be different from Chip's, but once you find it, stick with it and use it in other aspects of life, not just your game creation side, not just whatever art you're doing or anything creative, whether you're writing a song. Once that technique becomes habit, you do it without thinking, and that's when you get the most progress. So definitely try it. And as we said when we talked about beta testing and stuff, run through the ringer. So I think that's really it.
Yeah, just look into it is all we're saying. Like look into how people break things is always a good
exactly
good thing for you.
So I think that's our time. I'm Mr. Gimpy, and that's Chipped Monk next to me.
Chipmunk.
And like, share, subscribe, follow that podcast, sub, Ninja Star, whatever you got, and get 20,000 of your friends.
Frankensteiner, dude.
Yes, sir. We'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody. Later.
Peace.